serious matters, but you must think through this. Zara sochiyega. What is the most important thing in terms of India and the world that is now happening, or maybe, it will become more official perhaps next year? Think through this. And let me say this to you. Preeti, thank you very much. You seem to have moved away from here. I thought you were leaving this room. You're the most important person in what you said. And that is the fact that we are going to become the world's largest society in terms of population. Why do I say this to you? Here in India, when you tell people you'll be the world's largest population, अरे यार मर गए पता नहीं क्या आ रहा है। एक बहुत बड़े साहब ने मुझे कहा, यार अगर 200-300 मिलियन कम होते तो बहुत अच्छा होता। मैंने कहा, सर जी, all right, I don't know what to say with you. We can have a long discussion about it. कितने आपके लोग हैं, कितने नहीं हैं? On that matter, we can have a discussion. There's no issue. But tell me, those numbers will remain those numbers, whether you are number 1 on the leaderboard or you are number 2 on the leaderboard. Do you understand? You all did an economics panel. I hope those who have with economics background will understand what I'm saying. What is the critical difference? How do you think China became a permanent member of the Security Council? Of course, there's geopolitics to it. We all know the geopolitics. You all may not be very familiar. But the geopolitics of the United States and China needs to be understood in India. And I'll give you a simple example. Look at the globe. If you stand at India, you won't see the United States. The Chinese see them very well and they see them very well. Mr. Shansaran wrote a wonderful book. The first thing from that book that most people would learn, sir, if you don't mind my paraphrasing that, is that the Chinese turn around and tell us, you didn't figure out. The guys who ruled you for 197 years, what are they about? We figured it out, we're figuring it out a little better. That's the most important element. What will this do for you? If and when, and I think it will happen sooner rather than later, some kind of change in the international governance structures. Why? Why keep this country out? General Saab says we are becoming, I don't know what, how many muscles we are putting on. They say, yeah, come inside. Why at the time of the G20's formation were we brought in? The only requirement for the Americans at that stage was no letting China off the hook. They must pay because the world needs to get out of recession. And why should you let them off the hook? Why we pay and they benefit? Why did they bring us into the sea? There was no need to. In fact, the fact of the matter is, many people here thought the Reserve Bank of India more than anyone else that it's a bad idea to be brought into the G20. We have to pay for it. We had a hell of a struggle with the Reserve Bank of India to tell them to cover up the requirements for the SDRs. Now, the reason they got us in was very simple. Otherwise, it would have been, it was the G7 had become G8. The Russians had been co-opted. It would have become G9 and finally it would have been a G2 straight away. So it was a damn good idea from their perspective, the Western perspective. It's a US-centric world. Let's understand that. Very simple. You have this lot. Who will, take them on? And good idea. We have another prop we'll put up. From us, for the Chinese also there were a sets of issues. And this is the nature of this game. We are often nowadays being talked about this thing called the Thucydides trap. This is this rising power and all this hegemony business. Let's forget it. Let's be very clear. If India rises to where all the reports say, PwC has done this report, it's the only one which does this, what will happen in 2050 in real terms? It's possible that India becomes the second largest economy in the world in nominal terms and not the United States by a small margin. We won't be as rich as them, but by a small margin. Then you tell me, why should they be the leaders of the world? Arunaji just mentioned a whole list of items that we should stand in. Why should they be telling us what you should do on human rights? But have any of us thought, we don't do normative stuff, man. I'm being very straightforward here because I want to take advantage of this and reach out to those of you who are thinking people. You want standards for your fuel, we go and get European standards. Arunaji mentioned about the steel. You know how it happened, Aruna? It's because the Chinese backed with you. That's how the game happened. I was very much present there. I know this, what happened. This is the nature of the game. The important thing in my understanding is very simple. You need to have partners, you need to have collaborators, you need to have those with whom you will do deals. You can call it mini-laterals, madam. What used to happen earlier in the mini-laterals, they were about India. Now they are about somebody else. We join these mini-laterals. I am very clear in my mind. For India, the country as it is, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, Ekla Chalo Re. That doesn't mean no partnerships. Karishma ji here, in the last panel, spoke to us about what's happening on arbitration, this, that. I went and, sort of told her, damn good. What does it mean? It's not our ideas. That's why we don't know what to do. You sign bilateral investment protection treaties, then you wrap them up. Why? Because the Germans had a problem with something. You do this Vodafone deal and you run out of it. Why? Let me tell you, for those people like me who have dealt with these matters, what do you come up with? Have you seen SEBI regulations on anything? They're all cogs from here and there. But that's the way we are. Why are we speaking in English? My answer to all this is very simple. This is not wrong, this is right. Take the cue from what Ambassador Shyam Saran told us about the Chinese. Learn from those who've run the world. This is our greatest advantage. Be in this game, but remember, it is an Ekla Chalo Re world. And if you want to be in there, leadership, no leadership, somewhere at the top, that's what will happen. The topic here is India and the New World Order. It's not about China. China, yes, of course, geographically we are stuck with them. And what are you going to do? Let me give you one example. This is Nepal. Perhaps the best example in this case. Nepal shares land borders with two countries. It has no other borders with anyone. It doesn't have a sea outlet. Some 1,485 kilometers with India. And sir, we can't go about giving 400 square kilometers. It doesn't work like that with anyone. I mean, just think about it. Yet tomorrow somebody else will say, I'll take 500 square kilometers of your territory. Why? Because I got up one day in the morning, had a dream and said, it's mine. It isn't so. But try and tell any country in the world to change your map. Any country in the world. Can we do it? But, let's forget that. The Chinese have a 1,400 kilometers of land border. We in India are the only ones who don't understand that the Nepalese also have a land border with China. And these treaties between Nepal and China are old treaties. They're as much involved as we were. And we are very convinced that Nepal is part of India. Yes, sir. In various South Asian kind of context, civilizationally, of course they are. They have more Hindus as a percentage of their population than we have. They have so many of these aspects they're very much part of South Asia. No doubt about that. But let us also understand the compulsions and the situation in which they find themselves. But we are talking about nation states. We are not talking about civilizational ideas. Sir, I think Mr. Mahapatra, who spoke very nicely in the previous panel on what kind of a society you want to build. He spoke about mobility, he spoke about, individual merits versus collective actions, etc. These are fundamental aspects that you need to speak about in terms of what kind of a world you want. But I think, generally speaking, it's known the kind of world we want. A world of power. And that's the game that this India and the New World Order is playing. Not in terms of hum log paat kya kar rahe hain. Roman Catholic Church is the biggest champion diplomatic machine in the world. Itna to sabko pata hi hona chahiye. It's a fact of the matter. Now, why am I saying all this to you? I'm saying all this to you basically to say that it is my considered opinion that the fact that we become the largest country in the world, the fact that we'll become the second or third largest economy in the world are fantastic drivers for the way the world will look at us. And consequently, we in India need to focus on one major important thing. That was what you said at the very end of this long thing about China and so on, was grow your economy. You grow your economy, your abilities to do all the things that you say will happen. And if you can press the accelerator on growing the economy, which is all what you said, ma'am, run the thing better, policy interventions, each and every one of the things, the world knows and likes the idea that you are a great market. That's what makes it interesting for you. China, we have no choice in the matter. We have no choice in the matter. They are geographically next to us. This contestation will remain. But we need to run this contestation. We need to become man and woman enough to be able to carry this on. But in my opinion, and here I see a lot of people like me with white beards and, gray hairs, etc. But I speak a lot to young people and I tell them, when I started my career, the best thing that could happen, or the most exciting meetings that one could go to, were the Aid India Consortium meetings. When I demitted office at the end of 2019 in Nepal, I wrote the largest sort of, if I may use this expression, aid check that India ever wrote. In my office, 3 officers had to be called to read the number of zeros. We had never seen so many of them before. The change. The young people have this great opportunity. This is a country on the move, a country on the positivity. If we press the accelerator on economic growth, that much the faster and that much the quicker. And so therefore, sir, feel good. Very proud time as far as India is concerned. Thank you very much.